All right. So in exactly 20 seconds, we're going to start the stream and we're going to get cracking because this right here is an explosive stream that we're going to get to. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for coming in here. I will read your comments, so we will start the stream right now. Okay. So ICU nurse Alex Pretti was smoked by ICE. And though I understand how controversial this may be, because there are multiple angles that you can look at and say, you know what, he was a threat. And then there were other angles that sort of show he wasn't a threat. He was helping a woman who was knocked over. But the one thing that I really want to emphasize on is this commonality that a lot of people in the right have when it comes to performative cruelty. Okay? So this is what's going on. A lot of people in the right wing confuse strength from abuse. Okay? That is what I'm really trying to get at. A lot of dudes who come from right-wing families, okay, have this problem. Now, I'm not saying that people in the left don't have this problem. In fact, people in the left just do very little to discipline their kids. Okay, so that in and of itself is a different level of extreme in comparison to, let's say, the extreme of not really caring about your kids' feelings or not really caring about how they look at the world, or let's see. Oh, wait. What did this say? I still hope Fresh is coming back. Yes. Victory says, doing all right, brother. Glad to see you back around. Hate Love, one of our members in the members section says, hi, Victory. I'm okay. Thank you. How are you? I've been around much. I'll be here a lot more, man. I miss these streams. He says, well, it's nice to hear you say that, but what happens to Fresh? I've been around, so I haven't been in touch. Okay, he says, what's up, love? Hi, everyone. Greetings. Sean Boy says, do not redeem. Huh, what does that mean? Victory says, I just learned that a statistic 78 million pounds of beef per day is eaten by the U.S. He says, you ever hear do not redeem? Okay. So, all right. Speaking of Fresh melon juice, right? Yeah, I don't know where he's been. I know he's, famous in these chats that we have right here. But, like what I told you guys, right? I don't know this guy from a can of paint. He's obviously an anonymous guy, right? It's not like one of our moderators here, Marty, right? You know what he looks like. You know he comes from a gym, right? This is also how I vetted him and making sure that he's not an FBI agent or a CIA agent trying to track me down. But yeah, I mean, he's a real person. Like, you can verify that this is a real person, right? You can't do that with Fresh. You can't verify that this is a real human being. So, for me to have some sort of attachments or feelings towards him because he's not here, I mean, do I obviously miss the engagement that he provides? Yes, absolutely. At the same time, though, I don't know him from a can of paint, and that's the way that he chose to be. Now, with that choice that he's made of being anonymous, you also have to understand that it comes with immunity of saying the most vile things without any repercussions. Look, do I go out and say vile things? Yes, but not worthy enough for you to, let's say, find where I work at, for you to go and get me fired at whatever position I'm in, or for you to go and, let's say, get out of your way to dox me or anything like that. Yeah, because there are consequences to what you say. There's a lot of things that I want to say about certain people and about certain groups, but I refrain from doing so because I know that there are dire consequences to these things. So somebody like Fresh Melon Juice, or whoever he is, or whatever he is, for all we know, he could be a Chinese bot, he could be an Indian bot, he could be a Japanese bot, he could be whatever type of bot that he wishes to be, right? He's what we said, a 14-year-old, 300-pound, 6'8" CIA agent, which is absolutely just, the biggest exaggeration ever. So yeah, there you go. You're up out of here, right in the shadow realm. Right in the shadow realm, right in the shadow realm with your stupid toilet talk. But anyways, so guys, listen, I need you to understand, right? A lot of people mistaken uh, abuse for strength. Okay, and that is the most important thing that I want you to understand about this Alex Pretti story. Not so much what Alex Pretti did, because there are a lot of stupid things that Alex did here that got himself killed. Okay, let's just be very honest about that. He did a lot of things that got himself smoked. Okay, and in fact, if you look at the thumbnail of this live stream, that's exactly what I had. Let me show you how vicious this is right here, just to show you how serious I am about this. This is the thumbnail, okay? This is the thumbnail. Smoked, okay? Your ass got smoked. And look, here's the thing. I'm not happy about this, right? Because obviously, just like fresh melon juice, I don't know Alex Pretti from a can of paint. I don't know him from a can of paint, but what I can judge on is his behavior leading up to this. Look, man, like, can we be honest about something, all right? Many minorities would not do what Alex Pretti did, okay? You ever notice a lot of these protesters are mostly white guys that have left-leaning to a certain degree, right? You know what I mean? It's very troubling, but I think there's a little bit of a hero's complex going on here. Now, it's not to say that right-wing dudes don't have hero's complexes, right? I mean, look at Daniel Penny. Right? I look, a lot of people would have thought that I would support what Daniel Penny did, right? Because you know, Daniel Penny is a Marine. You know, he's obviously trains a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but at the same time, I think that that was a bit of an overstep towards his part. Okay, a bit of an overstep. Now, why do I say that what he did was a bit of an overstep? Well, let's understand this, right? This man in the subway was not a threat to himself or anyone in the public. Now, I know what it seems like. Okay, he's yelling, I'm going to kill someone or this and that. I'm talking about the guy who got choked by Daniel Penny, right? But the reality is, if he was alive today, I highly doubt this guy would have been a threat to anybody. I told you guys that when a normal white person sees a black person, okay, they have an automatic fear response in their insides, right? There's a certain fear that they have. Oh, these kids right here, these black kids right here with dreads, they look like, you know, they're troubling. They look like they're trouble or this and that. That's how you view them, because maybe you haven't been around enough black people. Now, look, I'm not doubting that there's dangerous black people out there, especially on the gangbang world, right? I mean, I'm not in illusions to any of that reality. However, there are black kids who get harassed by white people in suburban neighborhoods, and these black kids are nerds. Okay, can I just be very honest about that? Some of these guys are nerds, yet to white people, a black kid with dreads is a threat somehow. And I think that's just what was going on in the Daniel Penny case, right? I think Daniel Penny probably never seen combat in the Marine Corps, right? Looking at his age, he looks, you know, rather young, right? So he definitely was not involved in the War on Terror era, right? Guys that have served from, you know, the early 2000s, mid 2000s, or this and that. He wasn't a part of that, so he never got to be in combat. So he never really got his fix, right? So once again, you know, the white savior complex theory, you know, falls into play here. What happens? He goes and he chokes out a guy at the subway because he thinks that, you know, it's somehow going to make him a hero. Well, it did make him a hero on the eyes of the right-wing media. But at the same time, he now had to deal with these court cases. Yes, he was, you know, acquitted. And you know how I get down, guys. You know, I don't wish prison on no man, right? Whether I like you or dislike you, I don't wish prison on no man. If I got issues with you, I'm going to handle my candle on my own and, you know, not involve the police, right? I'm not going to expect the police to lock you up or anything like that. You know, if anything, I'll probably come and kidnap you myself, put you in a van if it was really problems like that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get the police involved. That's just not what I do. But uh, I am happy that to that extent, I am happy that Daniel Pinney got acquitted because once again, I wish prison on no man. Victory says facts. Dees says, I'm not going to say the rest of your name because you know how it is. He says, even black people have that issue though. I'm mixed. A lot of minorities have the same stereotypes. Okay, so facts, Dees, right? Here's the thing, right? I hang out with a lot of black dudes, right? I got a lot of black friends. You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about like ride or die type of friends, right? I'm not talking about just like work colleagues or college colleagues or you know to that extent. I'm talking about like real homies, real down ass homies, like homies that I could really call my own security forces type of deal, right? uh Even with the people like that, even with people like that, we understand that other minorities could pose as a viable threat to your life. We completely understand that. Hate Love says we all have stereotypes, but it's up to us to change that. Stereotypes are only we choose to put on people we don't want to understand or to understand. Okay, Mr. Boston says, Mr. Frenchman, why do you make cinnamon toast cereals so small? Okay, I don't know what that is in reference to, Mr. Boston. Raslin says, stereotypes exist because they're true for most of the time. Mr. Boston says, English, please, we can't understand you. Mr. Boston says, okay, fine, yeah. I don't know how you would call yourself Mr. Boston when your English is not to par, but okay. I want to play this clip with Luke Thomas, right? Now, look, Luke Thomas, in my opinion, I think is the best MMA journalist in terms of political and mixing MMA at the same time, right? So here's this is what he had to say about Tim Pool's cheering of ICE. He says, "I am from Boston, not France." Okay, that was French, but it was a joke. Okay, I got you. I understand. You were trying to make, you know, a joke, but you know none of us understand it. It's okay. You can try again. Shout out to Mr. Boston. Make him feel welcome. You are definitely welcome in this chat. I was going to ask you what part of the world you are from, but I think a name like that, yeah, he says, yeah, I can't stand Tim Pool. Okay, well, you're going to love this.
Most AI plugins do all the work for you. This one works with you. Meet Co-Producer, a plugin that finds samples.
It's so funny, you know. There are so many times in the course of covering combat sports, you're like, well, this world is so distinct from the other parts of the normal world. How many lessons could there really be? And the reality is, the older I get, the more lessons I learn from my time in combat sports in any number of different directions. But in this particular case, listen, there's plenty of very tough right-wing men. This is not an argument about the totality of them, but just to understand something, there is a certain, and I've learned this from combat sports, there's a certain kind of right-wing guy that is deeply insecure, deeply weird, very much a cosplayer in terms of who they present themselves to the public versus who they actually are. And they really love getting behind who they perceive to be strong men. Whether or not they actually are is a different matter, but the ones who they perceive to be that way, in part because inherently they are fearful and inherently they are weak and they need someone else to do the dirty work for them. And then they kind of almost claim ownership over it as a way to then make themselves feel better. Like, I'm aligned with this. This is what I would do if I was in that situation. And they might have obviously some ideological agreement more broadly with whatever they're looking at. And therefore they'll say, that's who I am. That's me, right? That's that. And you see this kind of thing all the time. And again, not so much with the athletes who, again, have, at least on the athletic side, a fair amount of bravery, but beyond that, in terms of just social control and these sort of broader ideas, these are incredibly, and I've seen it inside of combat sports, really weak right-wing men who need other men to do something that they perceive to be masculine, performative or otherwise, and then they do this weird bit where they kind of claim ownership over it, almost as if it belonged to them, which you might even say they shouldn't even want to claim those things, but I'm just saying that's the chain of custody. That's the thought. I've seen it. And
okay, sorry, I had to you would not believe what I had to do. I had to go and shave. It's a little etiquette for me, right? I keep the mustache shaved. He says, yeah, damn. That list never gonna surface, not even redacted, along with the Epstein names. Yes, I got a video of his being decapped, huh? Okay, Mr. Boston, are you serious? Okay, all right, deplorable Mr. Boston, okay.
And the kind of guy that enrages those donks that I'm talking about is the kind of guy who actually lives in a
Okay,
way.
so this is, there's some truth to what Luke Thomas is saying here, right? There's a lot of guys out there that have never been in combat, have never been in law enforcement, have never been in the military, but talk the talk and never really walk the walk when it comes to this, you know, right wing, you know, idea of, you know, serving your country or doing the dirty things to keep this country clean, right? They would never do that. They cheer on guys like that, but they don't understand the extent of what it is that they have to deal with. The same thing with Daniel Penny. Okay, a lot of people are looking at Daniel Penny like, okay, you know what, you're a hero, man. You know, yeah, you really showed him or this and that. But here's the thing, right? It is Daniel Penny that has to live with the fact that he unalived someone. And here's the thing, right? When I look at Daniel Penny and I look at his profile and I, you know, and I try to size him up, he doesn't look like the type of guy that's okay with hurting or killing someone. I think that he was one of those white boys that had this, you know, savior complex. Oh, you know, look at me. I'm the white man. I'm going to save everybody or this and that. But by the end of the day, he's going to have nightmares. He probably does have nightmares for what he did, you know, regardless of what anybody tells you, right? George Zimmerman also, I think, is sort of suffering in that same, you know, in that same light, you know, because look, man, the Daniel Penny situation and also the Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman situation is completely different from this. He says, I can't believe Ben Sherman went dirty. I can. And you know what? I think that was the point of that show, right? You're talking about Southland Victory. I think that's the point of the whole show, was to show you the evolution of when he started as a rookie. He was an idealist, right? He wanted to come in there and save LA. For example, he wanted to save women that were, you know, abused by their husbands or this and that. But then he ends up punching a 15-year-old girl, you know, at some, you know, breakdance party that they had going on in, you know, in the middle of LA, right? So I think that is so real, even though it's a fictional show, even though it's not based on a true story. There's a lot of reality that we can stem from Ben Sherman's character, right? He was an idealist, and then later on he became dirty because he wanted to fit in with the other cops. And then on top of that, he wanted to have his partners back, and quite frankly, I don't blame him. Right? So that's sort of the moral dilemma that we are dealing with here. And you know what? There's a reason why I think Netflix revamped that show into their own content, right? There's a reason why they put that in their library. Because it's 2013, right? That's the latest episode that you got from Southland, 2013. And yet, it is still politically relevant today.
Way that they can't comprehend. These kinds of people cannot differentiate strength from abuse. They don't know how to disentangle the two. So when they see somebody who is not abusive but is strong, they react in revulsion.
Okay, I'm going to replay that part again because that's an important point right there. He says it has to suck for them to have everything on camera. Like they said, it's not black and white. They live in the gray. Yes, and that is why that show is perfect for the time era that it's in. 2013, they weren't heavy on body cams back in the days. You know what I mean? Like when, okay, you remember the San Andreas, whoever played the San Andreas story mode here, right? With CJ Johnson and the Grove Street. Yeah, you know, just to let you guys know, Grove Street, by the way, is based on the Crips, and the Ballas are based on the Bloods, and then the Vagos are obviously based on the Sureños, and then the Rifas are basically based on the northern you know, alliance, the northern Rasa, which are the Norteños. But yeah, that's okay. Going back to San Andreas, though, right? All of these things that Officer Tenpenny had CJ do, right? That was taking place in the 90s, 1992 to be exact, right? You could get away with stuff like that back in the days. Nowadays, you can't get away with stuff like that because it's a different era. Everything is accounted for through cameras. You have to wear a camera on your chest as a cop. And once again, there's a lot of gray lines going on, right? Cops are now more than likely to give you a ticket because their body cams are on, right? So because their body cams, and sometimes they can turn it off if they're, let's say at, one place or another or this and that, or if they're like, having a lunch or just, having a private conversation with a partner or a colleague, then maybe they can turn it off. But still, there's a certain level of surveillance that exists in the police force that ultimately no longer exists. There's not, that doesn't exist anymore. Having a sense of secrecy or privacy in the force. So that's what it is, right? Okay, so going back to what Luke Thomas is saying, I want you to understand this, right? People who have been abused their whole lives, right? So I just want you to think of Sean Strickland, okay? Whenever they see somebody show, compassion or a sense of understanding, they look at that as either gay, or they look at that as a sign of weakness. But let me play this again to make you understand what I mean here.
Abuse. They don't know how to disentangle the for-inch lives in a way that they can't comprehend. Talk and thought, I've seen it. And the kind of guy that enrages those donks that I'm talking about is the kind of guy who actually lives in a way that they can't comprehend. These kinds of people cannot differentiate strength from abuse.
So that's the reality of it, right? A lot of you don't know how to differentiate strength from abuse because maybe some of you had a cruel father growing up. Maybe some of you were beaten as a kid. And so somehow when you see somebody who's sincere or does things a little bit different, you see it as a sign of weakness. Just like a lot of these women that have, abusive fathers or had no fathers growing up. The reality of their life is that they somehow see a nice dude who's, caring, or a dude that has, that doesn't, do horrible things to them. And they see that as like, you know what, this is a boring guy, or this is somehow somebody that doesn't excite me, or this and that. And then next thing you know, they go to, a thug nigga that they want to, date. And then next thing you know, they're getting beat up because, that's what they wanted, right? They wanted somebody who was a thug, somebody who's strong, right? You know what I mean? So that's the reality of it, right? I need you guys to understand this because this is really the theme of the whole entire show right here.
They don't know how to disentangle the two. So when they see somebody who is not abusive but is strong, they react in revulsion, right? They react very, very negatively. They react very strongly because what they're really doing is holding up a mirror to these losers and these bottom feeders about what they actually are. When they see someone with strength, genuine, real.
And look, I gotta tell you what he's talking about right now. I've seen this with a lot of people in the streets, right? And I think, let me just say that I had to do a lot of things, to prove to people that, you know what I mean, I'm not as soft as I come across just because, I may be soft spoken. Okay, let's really get the elephant out of the room. I talk white. Okay, I talk white. That's what it is. So they think that because I speak proper English that somehow I'm a bitch, right? They think that somehow that because, I speak like I'm from, an upper middle class family, that somehow I'm not worthy of X, Y, and Z. But sometimes you got to prove them wrong. He says Midwestern newscaster. There it is, right? Yeah, they think I'm like a newscaster or a news anchor, right? Because of the way that I sound. But little do you know, I could put you in the news if you know what I mean. Okay? Channel 11 News, Channel 7 News. This just in, youth got banged up because, he was talking smack, and we don't know what happened. We just saw a bunch of guys dressed in black with gloves on, with a balaclava mask on, and that was that, right? That's what you're gonna get out of me. So if you think I'm just some newscaster sounding type of dude, you got another thing coming. I could easily show up at your house with Samoan-sized football players or dudes in dreads, and you won't even know that it came from me. So, please understand that, man. You know what I mean? This is a completely different ball game. Look, here's the thing, right? A lot of dudes say that they're gangster, right? But what is it that really makes you gangster, right? Like, can you fight? Can you shoot a firearm? Like, how good are you at tactical insertion? How good are you at close quarter combat? Right? How good are you at drive-bys? I mean, drive-bys are actually not really, that hard. Although I will say it is a little bit harder to aim with a moving car, right? I will say that it is a little bit harder to aim with a moving car. But anyways, Stay Off the Grid says, out of here. You're out of here into the shadow realm. He says, can most dudes fight? The fighters, Victory, yes, the fighters, obviously. But truth be told, a lot of dudes in the streets, and when I mean a lot of dudes in the streets, right, specifically when I'm talking about California gang affiliated people, a lot of them can't fight, bro. Yeah, a lot of them can't fight. This is the reason why shooting is such a problem in Stockton. It's a problem in Sacramento. It's also a problem across the United States. Cincinnati, the part of the United States that you're from, it's a serious problem. In fact, I think part of the reason why there's a lot of violence in Ohio, believe it or not, a lot of gang members from California migrate to Ohio, right? They did something here. Next thing you know, they're out in Ohio. And next thing you know, you got Blood and Crip sets in Ohio out of nowhere. And in fact, here's the thing, right? I think the Midwest, American-wise, is far more dangerous than, let's say, the West Coast, where there are only a handful of gangs, right? Like, for example, you can't start a Latin King set in California, right? Because the Sureños, the Bloods and Crips would not allow it, right? You can't start a black gangster disciple gang from Chicago in California. Although there is one blood set, the Peace Stones in LA, that have lineage from Chicago. The original leader of the Peace Stones was originally from Chicago and was from a Chicago gang. And then when he came out here in the West Coast, he started a whole new blood set. Oceanside in near San Diego, a big military town, but it is also a town that has, believe it or not, some elements of gangster disciples and vice lords from other states. And the reason for that is because there's gang affiliated military people that join and get shipped to Oceanside, and next thing you know, they bring their gang elements there. Katie Betts says gangs are stupid, be better. I agree with you. I agree with you to a certain extent. Let me tell you what I find really stupid about gangs, Katie Betts. Okay, let me tell you what I find stupid about gangs. I find it stupid that I have to go and fight another man based on the fact that he comes from a certain neighborhood or comes from a certain color that has a history with the group of people that you know, right? And it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. That part is stupid. Okay, the part of, well, you're wearing a different color, so therefore I'm going to bang on that. I'm going to die on that hill. I think that is stupid, right? I 100% agree that that is stupid. Nilburn says ICE is given 50K sign-on bonus. Wow, okay, that's interesting. I didn't know that, Nilburn. But let me tell you when gangs are not stupid, though, okay? And Hate says police is the biggest gang, so in that sense, I understand, kinda. Well, you know what? Where's Marty at, right? My fellow Southland fan over here, right? What did Ben Sherman say to the priest that they picked up for getting beat up, right? What did he say to him? He says, you need to go wear your priest uniform around here because you need to identify and show people what colors you roll with. If they know that you're a priest, they're not going to mess with you, right? It was basically a priest that got robbed by a group of these black kids, blood members, right? So what did Ben Sherman say to the priest. He said, you got to wear your colors around here. You know, whether you're LAPD, whether you're Blood, Crip, Vato, Sureño, Norteño, you know, all of that. You got to wear your colors. So he's right in that sense, right? What Hate Love is right in that sense. The police are the biggest gangs because this is coming from a fictional police officer in a fictional story that said what I just said right now. So let me tell you when gangs are important, right? Or when it helps. I'll give you an example. When I was in the car business, there was this one guy. I'm not going to mention his name. I will say he's Arab though, right? You know, because you know how Arabs are. You know, sometimes you really get into some serious, heated debates with them about business transactions. Long story short, this Arab guy didn't want to pay me the money that I was owed. Big mistake. Big mistake. That night, I showed up at his house with a group of guys, and I had these group of guys talk to him, right? We came to an understanding, because here's the thing. Even though the guy was Arabic, and even though I'm Arabic, even though I, you know, can speak some Arabic and have a good understanding of Arabic, that night, he understood the language that I was trying to speak to him. Okay, because for whatever reason, he didn't understand the language of, I need to be paid this much because this is what is owed. He decided, nope, I'm going to give you this much. Like a true Arab scumbag that he is, he went and, you know, lowballed me. Guess what happened the next day? He gave me twice of what I was owed. You understand? Does anybody understand what I'm trying to convey in this story? Right? Because I obviously can't give every single details there is, because that's my own business. I need you guys to understand that. Right? He says, I respect to you, Kyrie. You had your gang, but did not use it to get violent. I respect that. Okay, so there it is. Okay, so Hate Love understands the language that I'm trying to speak here, right? This was not, you know, a blood and crip, you know, situation or historical beef that goes back from like the 1980s because some dude, you know, messed with some other guy's girl. Now these two sets are going at it. It wasn't that. You know, this part right here, this is really the stupidity of gangs that I don't like, right? I don't like that because primarily because I have a lot of friends that are, you know, that are affiliated on different sides, right? There's guys that are Bloods, there's guys that are Crips. You know, I know guys that are Latin Kings in the East Coast, right? I know guys that are GDs and Vice Lords in the Midwest. I don't have a problem with any gang at all, right? Unless, of course, they bring it upon me, and you know, and then even with that, right, the hatred will never be about their gang. It will always be about a certain specific individual. So here I am, right? I'm in this, you know, car business, right, with a group of these Arab guys, and make no mistake, just because a lot of these Arab guys that come here, they look nice, they present themselves really well, they smell good, they always wear like top tier cologne. You know how it is, right? You guys understand what it's like being around Arab guys. This is how they are. They dress nice. They got the polos on and this and that. They got the BMWs. They sometimes wear the track suits looking like the Italian mafia. So they look like squared away type of guys. But the reality is they have a gangster side to them too, right? And a gangster element that sort of will lowball you if you are doing business with them. And then they look at me. They see me as a fellow Arab that they think they can exploit, right? Because, you know, here's this Arab kid that talks white. Oh, you know, he talks perfect English. Maybe we can go and exploit him. He thought wrong. He thought wrong, and let me just say that he learned his lesson that day, right? Now, look, is he going to screw other people while he's in a car business? He probably will. He probably will, because these people are weak, right? These people are weak. But this is exactly what I mean when Luke Thomas said what he just said right here. This is exactly what I mean.
They kind of claim ownership over it, almost as if it belonged to them. Which you might even say they shouldn't even want to claim those things. But I'm just saying that's the chain of custody. That's the thought. I've seen it, and the kind of guy that enrages those donks that I'm talking about is the kind of guy who actually lives in a way that they can't comprehend. These kinds of people cannot differentiate strength from abuse. They don't know how to disentangle the two. So when they see somebody who is not abusive but is strong, they react in revulsion.
That's exactly what happened, right? This guy thought, you know what? This guy, myself, I don't have any abusive traits, right? I'm not, out there harming people or lowballing people or anything like that. So they just thought, you know what? Let me go and exploit this kid, right? Because he talks white, because he sounds white, so he must be soft, right? Because I don't talk ghetto, I don't speak with a broken accent, right? I don't sound like a fresh off the boat idiot or something like that. Katie Betts says, I get where you're coming from, but threatening violence isn't good. There are other routes. Katie Betts, I love you, man. I love you. Shout out to you, my man. I hope that you do stay in this chat and contribute more, because I welcome and I welcome, and not only that, I love your takes and insights on this particular matter, primarily because I think that it's a naive stance, in my humble opinion, and it depends on what part of the world you're from. By the way, let me know what part of the world you are from. Are you from the United States, or are you from here? Let me know. But what I'm trying to say is that at that time, well, okay, look, see, this is why I can't reveal too much, but let me just say that I had to do what I had to do at that time, because let me just say that it was dire consequences at the time. Okay, so right now, I will say that I live pretty good. I live pretty decent. I live, let me just say I live better than most Americans. I'll say that, right? And I think I don't think I'm necessarily lying about that, right? I've live streamed enough on this chat for you guys to get the hint that that I kind of have some motion going on. But on any regard, back then when this happened, I didn't have a lot of motion going on. Okay, I want you to imagine you're behind bills, you're behind payments, you're behind your rent, and you got to get something done. What are you supposed to do, right? You know that this person has money on the other side, and you know that he's supposed to give it to you, but then he decides he doesn't want to give it to you because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe because he had, some problems going on. I know he didn't have a gambling problem, so I know it had nothing to do with that. Maybe he has debts in other places going on, right? But whatever it was, he just decided, you know what, I'm not going to pay you what is entitled to you, and therefore it was going to completely affect the trajectory of my lifestyle in that particular moment, right? Well, not just lifestyle, right? That's beyond lifestyle. Like, we're talking security. So what he did was wage an economic war against me. So if you're going to wage an economic war against me, you are declaring war against me in every front. So therefore, I'm going to declare war against you. And, well, let me just say that I trumped Venezuela to him, okay? That's exactly what happened. For the same reason why Trump went after Venezuela is for the same reason why I went after this Arab scumbag for trying to lowball me. Hate Love says, Katie, I think you're missing the point. It's not about making threats. It's about showing you're not a pushover, in my opinion. There you go. There you go. And look, here's the thing, right? Katie Betts, I don't know what race you are, what part of the world you are, or where you're from, but I will say most people who come from privileged backgrounds, in particular white backgrounds, because let's just be honest, the majority of people who are privileged in this country are white based on just economic prosperity alone and generational wealth. That's just the reality of it, right? But people in that position are not going to understand what it is that you need to do when somebody is pushing you to that brink, right? They're not going to understand it. Right now, here's the thing, right? Here's a good point that Katie Betts made, though. He said, I get where you're coming from, but threatening violence isn't good. There are other routes. Well, guess what? If that was to happen today, this is what I would do. I would go call a lawyer straight away. I would go call a lawyer and get that money back. Now, would it be a lot slower? Yes. But here's the thing. It's slower. It's legal. On top of that, I can afford it. So, therefore, I can afford to wait, right? At that time, I couldn't afford to wait. You understand? That's the difference. That is the difference, is that I can't afford to wait. Now, those same guys those same guys that assisted me, okay, well, let me just say that obviously they're living their own life trajectory, okay? But do I go and see them on a daily basis? Sure. You know, when I get the chance, when I, you know, pull up in the hood and say, what's up, this, that, and the other, sure. You know, I go there and you know, pay my respects, and, you know, and they pay me their respects. If they got a barbecue going on, you know, they call me, and you know, and next thing you know, we're, you know, hanging out, right? Yeah, you know, I value what those guys have done for me. But once again, let me explain something to you, right? There was once a quote that said, a poor person is more than likely to help you than a person who is rich. And that is true, because guess what? There's nobody in my suburban white neighborhood that I currently live at right now would ever go with me to the hood to go and collect some debts, if you know what I mean. Okay, he says, please like and subscribe and help Kyrie bring us awesome content on a regular basis. Thank you, my man. Thank you for that promotion. Hate love. He says, hi, Mimi, welcome. Okay, yeah, I guess we got a new person in the chat right now. Shout out to Mimi. Let me know what part of the world you are from. And yeah, let's get to this content right here.
Right, they react very, very negatively. They react very strongly because what they're really doing is holding up a mirror to these losers and these bottom feeders about what they actually are. When they see someone with strength, genuine, real, not performative, masculine strength, or even other forms of it too, it drives them insane because it just is a lesson in their own inadequacy.
So yeah, man, Luke Thomas is making a lot of good points here.
Let's see. I bring this all up to say I don't really watch Tim Pool at all. I see his stuff come up.
Oh yeah, so obviously now we're getting to the Tim Pool stuff
On my social media feeds, or I see it on YouTube, and I'm always just kind of flabbergasted that he can have an audience given how utterly uninteresting anything he says for the most part appears to be. And he had a clip that I saw get circulated that I just thought, I said to myself, I could not believe how perfect it was in trying to understand.
By the way, guys, if you really want to help, hit the hype button down below, right? It will really help with the visibility of the show. Thank you.
This kind of phenomenon I'm talking about, and it laid it out so bare, so crystal clear that I had to share it with you here. Listen to this and tell me if this doesn't completely describe A, exactly who I'm talking about, and B, that you don't understand the exact same thing, even if you haven't witnessed this on the combat sports side in particular. Weak men trying to co-opt what they see as the strength of others, whether or not it's strength or not. Usually it's not, because they can't differentiate strength from abuse. So they lean into what others do as abuse as a sign of strength, and then say, oh, well, I could do, that's me, I could do that, right? So they're lionizing and they're celebrating the wrong kind of what they perceive to be strength, and then on top of it, taking credit for it.
First of all,
okay, so I want you to understand that this also doesn't just fall to the right-wing guys, right? Obviously, left-wing guys have done this. Remember Babbitt, that former Air Force veteran that got shot up during the January 6th insurrection, right? When she got shot up, there were a lot of left-wing people that were happy. They're like, oh yeah, you know, she got what she deserved. And yeah, I would have done the same thing. If I was that cop, I would have done the same thing. And yet these are also the same lefties that hate cops as well, right? I mean, you know, I can't blame them necessarily, but, you know, I would probably have a different reason why I would disagree with cops than they do, right? For me, the way that I look at it is that with cops, it's like, it's a game, you know? You have to catch us, we have to prevent ourselves from getting caught. That's the name of the game, right? You know, just like when you were a kid, you played cops and robbers. No wonder that whenever I was playing these games with my friends, I was the robber and they were the cops, and here we are in our adulthood. But anyways...
when these people come out and go, Tim's a bootlicker for defending us, I'm like, no, you misunderstand. It's my boots. It's mine. I voted for them. I'm wearing the boot. I'm stomping on the ground.
Okay, that right there. I need you to, he says, Katie Beth says, I'm from Sacramento, so I understand Wow. Okay. So Katie Betts, we're from the same area, my man. We're from the same area. I obviously moved out here. I first moved to Stockton, and then after I moved to Stockton, and I went to Sac State. I went to college there, and then I never left Sacramento ever since. So, okay, the rest of your comments I'm going to read. He says, I'm from Sacramento, so I understand scumbaggery on that level. Your explanation makes sense given the desperation and ignorance of your youth, but I don't condone violence when other routes exist. So here's the thing, Katie Betts, right? Right now, a lot of other routes exist for me. Okay, if you want to defame me in any kind of way, I could go call some lawyers and and have you pay up, right? Have you pay up on some settlements or this and that, right? I've gotten myself out of several tickets just based off of understanding laws and understanding procedures of of police paperwork, right? Now I could say that. Now I could say that. And I'm going to tell you why I could say that, because I'm in a much privileged position to do so. Right back then, I could not say that. This story that I conveyed to you just moments ago. This was 2013. Okay, this was 2013. This was not 2025. This wasn't even 2018 when I really started coming up on what I was coming up on. But yes, you're absolutely right. And by the way, let me know what part of Sacramento you are from, my man. Let me know what part of Sacramento you are from. Right now, I currently reside in West Sacramento. I mean, that's actually a different county. A lot of people mistaken West Sacramento for being also Sacramento County, but it's actually in the border of Yolo County and Sacramento. So Ali Khan says, what's up, bro? All right, man, we got the whole gang in here, man. Some of the originals from the chat. Hate Love says, UK, we played cops versus robbers, and in the US, you play Indians versus cowboys. It still makes me laugh. Yeah, Indians and cowboys is more of like what white kids played in like the 1950s, right? Some of the white kids would, have red paint on, right? They would paint themselves red, and then, they would go at it with the cowboys and this and that. But yeah. Hate Love sends his regards to Ali Khan. Okay, so all right, back to what Tim Pool said. Right, he says that those are my boots that I had voted for. Well, I gotta agree with Luke Thomas on this one. Right, Tim Pool is not the type of guy that would go into law enforcement because he would be scared shitless. Right, he's not the type of guy to enlist in the military because he's already, a famous streamer. Why on earth would he do that when he can just sit behind a camera and a microphone and just talk his smack, right? But on any regard, he's looking at what these ICE agents did as something like as if what he did, right? So I kind of understand where Luke Thomas is trying to convey this message at.
I ain't licking anybody. I'm clapping for these people that I said, please go out and enforce the law. And anybody else who's cheered for it, who voted for it too, we're all wearing the boots. You're the...
And here's another thing I need you guys to understand, right? When he said, I need these officers to impose the law. Look, I need you guys to understand, not all laws are moral. Okay? They're not all moral. KD Dot says all over, mostly northwestern part of the county, Antelope, North Highlands. I know West Sac. I used to work in Davis. Okay, good, man. So, all right, man. I have all types of international people that come here in this chat, people from around the world, in particular England, Scotland. So it's always nice to see, a fellow local, around here. I got some of my homies that, come in here and, and say what's up as well. So that's always good. But yes, it's always good to, meet, a stranger online that's also from, my part of Sacramento or these parts. And yeah, man, shout out to you. Hopefully if, if we see each other in town, don't be shy. I'm obviously very recognizable with the beard and no mustache. So you'll probably, pick me out from, from a crowd of people. So yeah, please don't be shy and say hi. I always love to talk to some of my supporters in this channel. Also, I've met some people in the gym, believe it or not, that were chat members. They're like, hey, I've seen your show, or this and that. You know, I've watched your live stream, so that's always good. It's always a good feeling to, you know, to get recognition from the locals, right? Because, but you look, here's the thing, right? There's always this thing about, you know, people from your hometown. People from your hometown don't want to see you do good because, you know, they feel like, okay, well, we used to be in the same position, now he's doing better. This is a little bit different because obviously I grew up in New Jersey, right? I came out to California and then, you know, and then made it my home. So nobody really looks at me as a guy that they went to high school with here, right? So they kind of, you know, just look at me as, you know, as some sort of outsider that they want to see do good. But anyways, yeah, shout out to Kate Betts and North Highlands. I'm very familiar with that area. Are you Eastern European by any chance? Let me know, because I know there's a lot of Eastern Europeans in that part of Sacramento. So let me know if you are of that persuasion.
The one crying. You're the one saying you're coming.
Listen, I don't know if you're aware of it, but I'm doing the only total free seminar I do every year.
You are nothing. You are nothing. You are nobody. You look at these jobs and the men who do them because, again, you can't differentiate strength from abuse. And you see that and it appeals to you because internally you don't understand that strength isn't abuse.
Damn. And it reminds me of Sean Strickland. Let's be honest about this. Everything that Luke Thomas is saying right here is Sean Strickland. He says, no, I can't attract my white ancestry. Okay, so you're basically a white American. Okay, that makes sense, Katie Betts. Okay, but shout out to you regardless. I was just curious because, as you know, that part of Sacramento has a lot of Eastern Europeans, so, you know, I thought maybe you could be of that persuasion, but, you know, you're white, so you'll probably blend in anyway, you know, speak with a little bit of a Russian accent. By the way, that's one of the things that I do in the channel, by the way, right? The little bids that I do is do Russian accents, right? Russian newsman. Russian newsman, yes, it's Russian newsman reporting for duty, right? They love it when I do the Russian accent thing, so... you know, if you probably pulled off a Russian accent like me, you could probably get away with it because obviously that part of Sacramento has a lot. He says, yeah, so many Punjab and Russian people. A lot of Punjabs. Okay, so I remember I lived at an apartment there in North Highlands. And I remember I didn't really see a lot of Punjabs there. I mean, obviously there was a lot of black people, a lot of Russians. You know, it's kind of like a ghetto Russian area. But yeah, you know, one of the other gyms that I trained at, Collective Combat Academy, was out there as well. So I've trained out in that area as well. So yeah, man, you know, good stuff, and you know, good food in that area. There's a Cuban restaurant in the North Highlands area. Yeah, there's this Cuban restaurant there. I forgot the name of it, but yeah, you guys should go check it out. Okay, so yes, everything that Luke Thomas is saying here is literally what Sean Strickland is, right? He was a guy that was abused growing up, so therefore he has this idea that strength is somehow predicated on, you know, abusive behavior.
Only see it in that form because you are weak, because your internal constitution is weak. If it came time to...
Ooh, he said your internal constitution is weak. So in other words, everything that you stand for doesn't really stand on anything, and it doesn't stand on strong principles. That's literally what Luke Thomas is saying here.
To stand a post with an M16A2 and actually put on the boots, you'd be the first one shitting and pissing yourself in formation.
He said M16A2. Well, you know, that was during the time of me and Luke in the Marine Corps. Now I believe Marines use M4s now, right? Which back in the days only the Special Forces guys got to have the M4s. But I believe now M4s are the standard rifle issued to every Marine Corps rifleman. He says, fun fact, the FBI has been using Ancestry family tree history to track and locate criminals. Not sure how, but it was a documentary and the UK want to do the same. I don't understand it. Sorry, it's off topic. Not off topic at all. No, that's not a problem at all. I mean, I don't mind off topics as long as it's interesting, and this is certainly interesting, right? There have been a few cases where people have gotten caught uh, through Ancestry.com because of a crime that they had committed, and yeah, and they found out, due to that reason alone. So, yeah, yeah. I would say that's pretty brilliant. Look, if I was a law enforcement official, yeah, I would probably use that as well. So, only a matter of time before Scotland Yard, MI5, MI6, and the NCA, right, the National Crime Agency of the UK, will do the same thing. He says, when I was in, only officers and staff and MCOs got M4s. Lower enlisted got M16s. They are the same basically, though. Yes, M4s are a little bit lighter, right? They're a little bit lighter, and with good reason why they're a little bit lighter. It's because they're used for, special operations. Obviously, because of its smaller size, you can also use it as a close quarter combat situation, whereas with M16s, it's obviously for riflemen and infantry people, right? Where you're doing a much bigger job than than the smaller job of small operation missions. So yeah, yeah. I'm assuming, Katie Betts, you're probably either in your late 30s or 40s, right? Just judging by the era that you're talking about, the Marine Corps. He says M4s have uh, collapsible butt stocks. Yeah, collapsible butt stocks. Yes, yes, yes. That is true. So yeah, you'd say you'd probably be right around that age range, right? I'm 40 years old, by the way. This year I'm going to turn 41 pretty soon. So I completely understand that era of the military for sure.
You couldn't do these jobs, which are abusive in nature, if your life depended on it. It's not your boot. It has nothing to do with your boot. Your boot will never be found there. You aren't that person.
Damn, bro, Luke Thomas is dissing Tim Pool. I'd love to see Luke Thomas and Tim Pool fight, honestly, right? I think this is where all of this is going to lead. I think Luke Thomas and Tim Pool are going to fight. I don't know, man. I don't think Tim Pool has any martial arts experience, and if he does, then that would probably be equal to that of Luke Thomas. I know Luke Thomas trains. He trains in very reputable gyms out in Washington, D.C. So, that's the most that I can say about Luke Thomas. And, for an older man, he also maintains Tim Pool. Tim Pool is, Katie Betts, Tim Pool is a right-wing commentator. So, he's a guy that wears the beanie all the time, right? Not to be mistaken by MMA Guru, although MMA Guru, I think, sort of was inspired by Tim Pool wearing the hat. So, yeah, he says, nah, you can't see Pool taking the fight or most fights. No, not at all. Not at all. And plus, Luke Thomas is a big guy, right? Even for an older gentleman like himself, I think he's like in his mid 40s, close to his 50s right now, right? He's not that much, older than me, but, this is mid 40s, and then this is 40 years old, okay? You know what I mean? Let me just do that again. 40, okay, 42, 43, 45 maybe, okay? But regardless of how old Luke looks, he maintains powerlifting, right? So he's a very strong guy. He's in the 400 club, 500 club, and trains jiu-jitsu, so he would be a problem for a lot of people, right? Not necessarily me. I would whoop Luke Thomas. Not necessarily that I'd want to whoop him, but, if it came down to it, obviously. But on any regard, yeah, Luke Thomas would be a hard out for anybody that's, not trained or barely trains at all, right? At my age, at 40, I'm still young. I'm still young, fast, and explosive, right? Indicative of the training sessions that you guys have seen me do in this live stream, right? Just the insane workouts that I do. There's no MMA streamer that trains, harder than me when it comes to conditioning, and I think people who have been OGs in this live chat could vouch for that. And that's not me bragging or anything like that. That's just being, really honest. But yeah, Tim Pool not taking that fight. I could obviously see Tim Pool not taking that fight. You're right.
You lionize them and you celebrate them. and you enjoy what they do and their performative cruelty because you are constitutionally weak, like this project, that is true. There is some symmetry there. But even then, you're still too chicken shit to go out there and actually do the hard labor that it entails. You are not that guy. You are not that person. This kind of dope that you see Tim Pool kind of being here with the one I referenced from Combat Sports, their number one feature is to talk tough. Sometimes they hide their identity, sometimes they don't. But
fresh melon juice. They talk tough. Sometimes they hide their identity, sometimes they don't. There you go. There you go. You guys understand now why I played this video for you, right? You know, this video was literally inspiration to this whole entire live stream, right? Because I have a different take on Alex Pretti, and I'm sure Luke Thomas feels that this is an injustice. To a certain extent, I do feel that it is, but at the same time, I also want you to understand, Alex Pretti brought this upon himself because of his white savior complex, okay? That's literally what it is. And white savior complex is not necessarily just a white liberal thing. It's obviously also a white right-wing thing as well. Hate Love says, Kyrie, it's like me with no martial arts training taking you on. I won't stand a chance. Like, I'm strong, but compared to anyone with real martial arts background, I know that I can't win. Not a fair fight, though. Yes, and believe me, I would not get into, quote-unquote, a fair fight with anyone in England because, you know what I mean? Like, people out there do the stabbing. Look, what is up with England, bro? Yo, listen, Western European gangbanging is on a whole different level. Like, they are out there cutting up each other with machetes and all of that, and I think that is indicative of their medieval past, right? I think those are some, you know, Celtic, Anglo-Saxon medieval genes that they have going on where they were fighting with swords back in the days, and now it's transferring over into the modern times of UK knife crimes. You know what I mean? Like, so it's very dangerous to get into a fight in England. Darren Till got stabbed in England, right? Look at Darren Till, right? You know, very high-level martial artist, right? High-level UFC fighter. You know, now you could say that, you know, he's a fairly decent boxer, an upcoming boxer at that. This is a very dangerous guy to deal with. And how did the Liverpool gangsters deal with him? They stabbed him right in his stomach. And next thing you know, his coach asked him to go live in Brazil with a team that he's affiliated with. So, and then obviously Darren Till, you know, met his baby mama out there, and now he has a kid as a result of that stabbing. But yeah, that's a story for a different time. Shout out to Darren Till.
is to talk tough. Sometimes they hide their identity, sometimes they don't. But talking tough is the only part of them that is tough. There's no other feature to them that you would ever identify as strong, masculine, tough, any of the things that we would commonly understand. Because they don't live those lives. They cannot live those lives. They are constitutionally incapable of it. But they can talk tough on the internet, and so that's a thing that they...
Are you Palestinian? No, I was born in Libya, and then yeah, I was born in Libya, but my family background has you know, Egyptian and Saudi roots to them. So, but I'm Arab nonetheless, right? I mean, Arab is Arab. The only difference that, you know, there's really no difference between Arabs. It's, you know, it's all made up countries by the Sykes-Picot. If you know, if you look back in the history of how the Arab lands were, you know, were formed. But yeah, so I was born in Libya, but my parents, well, my dad in particular, you know, comes from, you know, a Saudi Egyptian background. So yeah, you know, he was living in Libya because he was, you know, working at, you know, at an embassy there. So I'm gonna just leave it at that, right? You know, he worked at an embassy in Libya in the 1980s, and I think you kind of understand, you know, how that goes. He says, Katie, my mom is from Palestine and my dad is from Pakistan. Huh? You know what? That is an interesting mix. Hate love, right? Because your mom is Palestinian and your dad is Pakistani. Okay, that is that's not that unusual, but for a Palestinian woman, to be married off to a Pakistani is a little bit different, I will say, right? That's a little bit different. Yeah, tough history. You want to talk about tough history? My dad was locked up in Libya because he was accused of selling guns to the Irish and in the 1980s. But that's a completely different story. So, yeah, man, you know, when it comes to violence and international violence, I'm not a prude, nor am I a stranger to it in any kind of way. In fact, it's literally in my bloodstream. You know what I mean? So when I came out to Cali, I was like, okay, this is what you guys do out here. This is what you do, the tribal warfare. Like, yeah, I'm used to this. You know what I mean? Like, this is what you do, tribal warfare. One group is from this side, one group is from that side, and then they war with each other. This sounds very familiar to a North African Arab, but yeah. But yeah, that's an interesting mix, Hate Love. Okay, so Pakistani and Palestinian, that's a very interesting mix. Hate Love says, I know blades are dangerous. So many people will pull out a weapon for no reason. No one-on-one fights anymore. It's no longer about fighting to win at any cost, which is not nice for Darren Till. Yeah, that's why Darren Till got stabbed. But, you know, I always believe that... I always believe that most people, they're not going to fight you unless you know, unless they know they can beat you. Okay, Katie Beth says, I'm not in a tribe, bro. I'm a lone wolf. LOL. Well, you're white. You know what I mean? Let's just, you know, be honest about that, right? You're white. You wouldn't have to worry about, unless, of course, you go to prison, then you would have to worry about being in gangs, and then at that point, you would have to join the Aryan Brotherhood, right? So, you know, that's kind of the thing, right? If you're white and you go to prison, more than likely you have to run with the Aryan Brotherhood, unless, of course, you're a white boy that has gang affiliations with, let's say, the Mexican gangs or the black gangs or this, that, and the other. Hate Love says, Kyrie, you have done so well to overcome everything you have, and you still have your humanity and are really decent and awesome person. So happy I met you. Thank you, Hate Love, man. Thank you for that, man. And I hope to you know, meet you one day when I go to England and I visit out there, because that is you know, one of my plans is to, you know, get out there and you know, make content and, of course, enjoy the beautiful country of England. One of the greatest countries in the world, obviously right next to the United States and the UAE, right? So that's what it is for me, right? UAE, Saudi Arabia, America, England, these are all beautiful countries and my go-to places that I would love to be in, other than California. Obviously, California is, you know, has always been a dream of mine. And you know, quite honestly, you know, let me just say that I got turned out by the California culture. And if you're from the streets, you know exactly what I mean when I say got turned out. So, yeah.
They lean on, and that's what they use performatively to kind of signal their adoration for what they deem strength. That's this guy. Never stood a post. Couldn't bench press his own body weight of his life. Dude, this motherfucker can't even grow hair. He is nothing. You are nothing, Tim. You are not who you think you are. You can fool all these people on the internet. Even in terms of just leveling with the audience, you took money from the sketchiest of sources and then claimed not to know anything about...
Ooh. 2 RT employees indicted for covertly funding and directing U.S. companies that publish thousands of videos in furtherance of Russian interests. Dang. And this is Tim Pool right here. Damn, Tim Pool. Damn, bro. Okay.
Out it in the end, despite the fact that there should have been a million red flags about it, and yet you want to be taken seriously, if not as a journalist, as some kind of independent and...
Poor Chop says, they say there's so much ice in Minnesota, and I'll say yes, it's January. Dang, bro. Dang. All right. That's, you got jokes today, huh, afternoon?
Honest media figure. You are nothing that you say you are. You are absolutely disconnected from the things you tell yourself and the things you tell the public. To say nothing of the fact that he cannot tell the difference between strength and abuse, as I've been kind of...
Yo, liberals would hate you for saying something like that, right? That's a joke they would not even take as a joke. They would be vehemently offended by something like that, but I happen to think that it's pretty funny and clever.
Talking about this whole time. And more to the point, what you really need to understand here is on the substantive matter of the argument that he is making, aside from a little tiny weak person pretending to be strong behind a keyboard is really just quite pathetic in its own right. But putting that aside for just a moment, on the matter, on the substance of the matter here, what he is doing is cheerleading a lawless operation. He is cheerleading something, to say nothing of how foolhardy the project is in national self-harm, to deport the very best of us. And yes, of course, ICE goes after criminals, and it's fine that they get them, but as we now know, they're going after day laborers, dishwashers, friends, neighbors, colleagues, family members. I mean, that's who they're going after now.
And even knowing all of that, the majority of people are still going to support Trump and say, well, you know, they shouldn't have been here, which goes into question between what is moral and what is law. Let's have a conversation about that, right? Because that seems to be the theme of this whole entire live stream, from the stories I've told to the stories that I'm covering, and to the reaction of this video of Luke Thomas speaking on Tim Pool and his, love and affinity for ICE, right? That is the main theme here. The main theme is understanding that.
All right, and this idiot, colleagues, family members, I mean, that's who they're going after now.
The understanding that we have to make here is that laws and morality are not one and the same. That is what we are trying to convey with the message of this live stream. Laws and morality are not the same. They're not the same at all. Okay, it's immoral to keep families away from each other. Okay, it's immoral. However, it is against the law for you to come here illegally. So you have to juggle between what is lawful and what is moral in this standing. He says, we love ICE, F the immigrants, robbing bastards. Okay, well, that is your opinion on that particular matter, Lindsay. Why do you feel that way? If you feel that way, please let me know. And then obviously by looking at your profile pic, obviously you're a white guy that's saying this. So, I mean, you know, that should not surprise me in any kind of way. But yeah, I mean, you're entitled to your own opinion. I mean, you know, I get it. I get it that, you know, the United States is broke right now and that we can't afford to have all these people here. And that's primarily what it is. Look, let's be really honest about all of this, right? The reason why all of this is going on is because America is broke. Okay, America is broke financially. Doge. Why did we create Doge with Elon Musk? Why did we create that government sector? We created that government sector to audit everything that is going on in the United States. Okay? He says he's a wife beater wearing whitey. Oh, okay, you're talking about Lindsay. Yeah. We're broke, right? So we have to audit. Unfortunately, part of that auditing also has to get rid of these types of people that Luke Thomas just mentioned. The dishwashers, the neighbors, the people that are working in Home Depot, or the people that are working at Walmart, or this, that, and the other, right? Day laborers. We have to get rid of them. Now, is that correct? Is that morally correct? Probably not. But it is the law, and not only is it the law, it is incumbent upon the interests of the United States to do so. Katie Betts says, anyways, yo, I'm out. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much, Katie Betts. And also, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Continue to support the channel. And I will see you next time around, because I'm going to do plenty of these. I will be here to continue this and to, continue on my journey to YouTube superstardom, inshallah. But yeah, shout out to you, Katie Betts, my fellow Sacramento guy.
All right, and this idiot cannot differentiate the validity of this mission, and so he's continuing to cheerlead it. Again, he cannot tell the difference between abuse and strength. It is that
No, listen, Lindsay, it's perfectly fine, my man. Listen, you are welcome to say whatever it is that you want to say here, right? The only thing that I ask is obviously, be respectful towards me. You don't have necessarily be respectful towards the subject, right? Now, from what I'm gathering, you seem very respectful towards me. I highly, I highly respect that. But you're not respectful towards the situation or the story, and quite frankly, I can't blame you for that, because as an American with First Amendment rights, you have the right to feel that way. Okay, so yeah, so I think you're a pretty sound guy as a result of that. I think you're a pretty stellar guy as a result of that, because you can show respect to me. Let's say somebody that may have a different opinion than you, and you know what? There's some opinions that I have that may not be different from yours, right? I think I'm a bit of a centrist. I think that's the best way to really classify me. If I was to take a political test, I think I would be considered an Islamist centrist. That's what I think I would come across as if I was to take a political test, right? I would be classified, yeah, as an Islamist centrist, right? So Dragon Phelan says, God bless ICE. Okay. And Lindsay says, Line Z, not Lindsay, Line Z says, yeah, I understand. Yeah, Line Z, let me know what part of the world you are from, my man. I'm assuming maybe the United States. If so, let me know. Dragon Phelan says, God bless ICE. Okay, very interesting point, right? Are you saying God bless ICE because you feel that they are doing God's work for America, or are you just saying God bless ICE because you wish for their safety? Either way, not a bad thing. He says, I'm from Birmingham, UK. Okay, man. All right, so Birmingham, UK, that is the same place that Leon Edwards is from. That, I believe, is in the Midlands area of the United Kingdom. So yeah, man, shout out to you and all the Brummies out there. You know what I mean? Some of the hardest accents to, understand in England is from Birmingham. I mean, look at Leon Edwards, right? And his language articulation. It's very difficult to understand Leon Edwards, but I hope that you're probably easier to understand in person if I was to meet you. But yeah. Lines, he says, appreciate that. The way you speak, I respect. It's a shame we all can't get along. I agree, man. I agree. You know what the thing is that, look, I think it's easy for me to say that, you know what, I don't have to agree with you, but I respect you. I think it's easy for me to say that. Let me tell you why I think it's easy for me to say that, because I'm not affected by any of this. Now, when you say that we should all get along, maybe the reason why we all don't get along is because there are all these political strife that is going on in the world that vehemently affects certain people, that affects certain people from the position that they're at. So look, even though I can go and respect people who have a different opinion on ICE, right? Let's say a Mexican family who is being affected by deportation and things of this nature, will not feel the same way. They're not going to have this stoic or non-emotional stance on a particular matter the way that I will, right? Because even though I don't like seeing families get separated, it's not my family that's being separated. So quite frankly, it's very easy for me to be, objective or be a centrist to this particular matter at hand. He says, West Midland, we love Rocky Edwards. He's from Aston, Birmingham. Okay, so there it is, right? Leon Edwards is famous in that part of the world. Obviously, he brought home an undisputed championship there after that Kamaru Usman win in Utah not too long ago, a couple of years ago now, actually.
That distinction is invisible to him. And the point I'm trying to make is he is cheerleading on a lawless operation. If you take the exact thing and the methods that ICE is using to do it, routinely, for example, ignoring court orders, right? Just on that level alone.
If you were sexually abused while in a juvenile detention facility, you may be entitled to $580,000 or more in compensation. Billions of dollars have already been paid to survivors in similar abuse cases involved.
And you turn that against a project, a political project, that he would support one more time, he'd be the first one shitting and pissing himself as a consequence.
Yeah, Lindsay, yeah, I believe one of the moderators accidentally deleted your message. He said, sorry for that, my bad.
He doesn't care about the proper role of the federal government. He does not care about restraints on it as it pertains to protecting oneself, protecting the interests of the average person, protecting their constitutional rights, for crying out loud. He never answers the question, what should the government be allowed to do to me? What he's saying is, here's what I want the government to do to you. Because he is weak. He is constitutionally weak. Anybody who gets out there and says things like, oh, it's my boot. It's not your boot, Tim. It's not. You can be supportive of...
So everything that Luke Thomas is saying here, I've seen during the War on Terror era, right? Like a lot of these people that are, you know, staunch Bush supporters from back in the days, right? Staunch Republicans, they had this idea like, yeah, go in there and, you know, blow up these towel heads or this and that, right? You know, yeah, you're doing a good job, America. Yeah, that's America right there. We kick ass. Here's the thing, guys. Here's something you need to understand. Whenever you cheer the military on and you say we kick ass, no. The military kicks ass. The Marine Corps kicks ass. The Navy SEALs kick ass. The Green Berets kick ass. You don't kick any ass whatsoever because you kick your own ass on a daily basis. In fact, you get your ass kicked by your wife every single day of your pathetic life. For the most of you, not all of you, obviously, the proverbial you that I'm talking to, but you know what I mean.
Whatever you want, whatever you believe ICE is doing. But the reality is what the genuine material things that they're engaging in and the lawlessness of it, it can be turned against you and your people.
White Rice says, Jesus Christ, okay, so, yeah, basically, Jesus stuff, okay. Lindsay, you're back now, I undid it, what I did, it won't happen again, okay, awesome.
It can be turned against you and the things you support, and you will not be sitting here saying, wow, this is just these are just powers that I'm glad have been enumerated to the...
I'm glad he mentioned that part right here, this
people.
part.
It can be turned against you and the things you support, and you will not be sitting here saying, wow, this is just these are just powers that I'm glad have been enumerated to the federal government and given to...
He basically said that the pendulum swings both ways, okay? In England, okay, since we're in the topic of England and hate love, one of my moderators is from the UK. In England, they cracked down on Tommy Robinson, on the right wing, on anti-Islamic forces out there, right? The EDL, Britain First, all of these people, they cracked down on them. Now, here's the problem with all of that. Here's the big problem with all of that. The big problem with all of that is that it can go both ways. I tell my Muslim brothers in the UK, I know you guys are cheering whenever Tommy Robinson gets harassed by the police, whenever he gets locked up by the police and things of that nature. But here's the reality. You're not the cops, you're not the authority, and you're not in position of power. They will use that against you as well. They will use that against you just as they're doing that to the non-Muslim white boys. They can easily do that to you, so be careful what you wish for when it comes to an overbearing government that wants to overstep their boundaries.
To them. That's the point. The point is, what are they allowed to do to all of us? And what kind of questions should we have? What protections should we uphold? What rights do we have in this matter? Whether it's about immigration enforcement, whether it's about the right to choose in various states, whether it's about any other number of different factors that are involved here. He cannot tell the difference between abuse and strength. And there is no greater red flag, there is no greater revealer of a weak man than somebody who conflates the two.
Hand off your taxes.
That is the truth. He is pathetic. He is weak. He wants angry men to do abusive things on his behalf because he thinks supporting that makes him look tough. Because doing the actual things that make a person tough are absolutely inaccessible to his constitution. He would never, ever sign up to be a police officer. He would never, ever join the military. He would never, ever live his life in any kind of way where having to use strength and be tough was the way in which he led his life. But he can talk tough on the internet. And other losers who can't tell the difference between strength and abuse might, they hear that. They also feel a need to really subjugate marginalized populations or anyone who they perceive to, have their political ire. But I hope this moment clarifies exactly what's going on here. He can say, I'm not a bootlicker because I like this version of the political project. But the powers that they are using to enact that, if they were switched the other way, would all of a sudden make him lose his mind. Or, more likely, cower in a corner and then ask a real tough man to come and save him from it.
Pork Chop says, I've seen videos of people bringing toddlers to these protests where pepper spray is being deployed. I don't understand taking kids to potential violent protests. Well, here's the thing, right? It's called white privilege. That's really what it is, right? They believe, look, here's the problem with Alex Pretti, okay? And by the way, this is the video that I'm showing you right now where Alex Pretti was getting into it with ICE days prior. He basically busted up their headlights, their rear headlights in the back, right? He kicked it. He basically front kicked it. He says it's not privilege, it's stupidity. No, it's privilege. They really believe that no police officer will harm you. This is white privilege mentality. People who come from the third world, or black Americans in particular, don't have this type of luxury in their mind where, you know what, we can get away with doing this with our kids, right? This is basically what he did, right? Was, obviously he didn't bring his kid, Alex was Jewish, not white. Whatever he was, right? Look, white privilege literally is Jewish privilege, right? I get it, right? Yeah, he's Jewish, he's not white, but, he's white in the exterior, and as a result of that, that's how people are going to perceive him. So look, here's the thing, right? He died because of the fact that he wanted to fight for what he believed was true, and I understand that. I get that. But at the same time, just because it is the law, or just because you can be protected by the law in most cases, not necessarily in this case, but in most cases, just because you're protected by the law, it doesn't mean that you should engage in this type of dangerous behavior. You see, people who come from brutal regimes, you don't see Arabs doing this, right, in Saudi Arabia, because they know what's going to happen to them, right? Take a look at what happened with Khashoggi, right? You don't want none of that smoke. You would not do this in Egypt, because I've seen what happens to people in Egypt when they speak up against the government, and I've seen it firsthand how brutal it can be. Okay? This is white privilege mentality. Okay? And again, white privilege mentality goes both ways. It goes on the right wing and in the left wing side of things. It happened during January 6th. That's white privilege to the max. They think they can just run up in there at the Capitol. You had one dude putting up his feet in Nancy Pelosi's desk and all of that, and he thought that he was going to just get away with that. Who thinks like that? Who thinks that they can just go into a Capitol building and nothing will happen to them? White, privileged people. Well, that also goes in this particular light, in this particular incident, but also in the reverse political side of things, with now left-wing white people believing that they could get away with antagonizing the police, right? Making all these types of noises, whistling, all these stupid women that are like raising their voices to just basically distract the ICE officers, right? He says there's no such thing as white privilege. I think you're wrong on that, Connor. I think you as a white man, you would probably say that. Look, here's the thing, right? Privilege is real, okay? We all have different privileges. You just have to understand what it is. For example, if you're a black man in the music industry, you have privilege. You can basically network yourself into becoming an AR if you were smart enough to do so, right? P. Diddy did it, right? He knew that he was a black man in the music industry during his college days, and he knew that he could get in there and become the big boss, and if not, obtain some kind of positions of power. So that's black privilege, right? What about Arab privilege? Well, I tell you what, how did I get in the car business? Well, because I knew a bunch of Arab guys in the car business. They taught me game on this particular matter, how to make money, how to sell cars, how to buy cars, how to buy it from an auction, and how to resell it at, all these things, right? This is Arab privilege, obviously, because this is a sector that many Arabs in this part of Sacramento are engaged in. So I was able to engage myself in that particular community. And then on top of that, just other, like for example, if if let's say Turkey El-Sheikh was to see my video, he says, oh, you know what, this is a very smart man, let's get him on the DAZN broadcast team, right? That's Arab privilege, right? White privilege is also real, right? Somebody sees you at an all-white town and you're not from there, but you happen to be white, and you walk into a restaurant, they're going to be like, you know what? We're going to welcome this guy. That's white privilege. Whereas if, let's say, I was to walk in there with a bunch of Arab guys or a bunch of black dudes with dreads, and they're going to look at us all funny, right? Oh, what are these guys doing here, right? Because we don't have that same privilege in that. So what I'm trying to say is that privilege exists. You just have to know what is your privilege. Okay, everyone has it. Indians have privilege, right? If you work in the tech industry, and let's say you're in HR at a tech company, right? You have the power to hire Indians who are basically in the same field or have the same study as you. Hey Love says, I have to go now, school run. It's been a great stream. I will be back soon. Got to cook for the kids, and I'll be back online. Take care, everyone. Respect. Shout outs to you. Connor says, no such thing as white privilege. He says, you could say the same exact thing if you walk to an Arab restaurant or a black restaurant. That doesn't make sense. That's the point that I'm trying to make, my man, is that, you as a white man, if you were to walk into a black restaurant or Arab restaurant, yeah, well, of course, maybe they're going to look at you funny because you don't have that kind of privilege with them. But if you were to walk into, let's say, a country buffet in the middle of Iowa, then yeah, you're going to have a certain type of welcoming that other groups may not, and that's really what it comes down to. All right, guys, so listen, Tony Montana. Tony Montana, huh? What's the reference with that? Shout out to Real Alien Encounter on that. Okay, so, guys, that is the entire live stream that we just did right now was based on this subject of Alex Pretti. We talked about whether he really brought it upon himself or whether he really didn't, and also talking about government abuse supported by performative cruelty. Those are the subjects that we talked about with this one. I gave you the reasons why he was smoked by ICE, but I also gave you reasons why he shouldn't have been, and gave you two different sides of the spectrum. But also, let's understand, it is also UFC 325 weekend, so let's get to a little bit of some UFC talk and some fights that are going on this weekend. So he says, I'm first generation American from Ireland. Okay. My people were slaves and servants back in the day. So if anything, I see American privilege, not white privilege. That's a very good point, Connor. I'm glad that you brought that up, right? Arabs right now, I'm going to tell you something right now, right? Arabs right now are becoming white. Okay, we're becoming white. And let me explain what I mean by that. A lot of Arabs now are gaining a lot of privilege, positions of power, right? Whether that's in the international stage or whether that's in the stage of their domestic policies that they live under in the Western world. There's a lot of privilege that goes on with being Arab, right? Look at where I live, for crying out loud, right? I live in a gated white neighborhood. Okay, that's privilege in a whole different level. I get accepted to country clubs, right? I could hang out with rich white people and mingle with them with no problem, right? Why is that? Well, you're in a certain position of power. And look, here's the thing. There's black guys out there that, have the same position of power or have the same amount of wealth, but could not get into these country clubs, right? Because for whatever reason, X, Y, and Z. Look, the Irish became white over time, became American over time, okay? You're right. The Irish were slaves at one point. You're right. The Irish were known as as what do you call it, a nuisance to society at some point, right? But this is also the reason why the Irish have criminal groups even till this day, the same way that blacks and Mexicans do. But there are a lot of Irish in America that are doctors, that are lawyers, and then if you look at a lot of the Joint Chief Staff members of the military, the guys that are top rank in the military, a lot of them have Irish names. So yeah, you guys have absolutely assimilated yourselves into white American culture. Right now, the Arabs are, you know, sort of stepping into that role, right? We're sort of stepping out of the 1960s version of the Irish and into the 1990s mainstream Irish that became white. That's literally what it is. He says we were considered lesser than humans. Right, because you come from a different group, but by the end of the day, when all of these other groups started coming in, then they realized, oh, you know what, the Irish weren't so bad, they're white like us. So that's kind of how it goes. So, all right, one particular topic on UFC 324 here, 325 rather, and let's, and then we'll call it a day because I do have to head out. So,
we got a reggaeton.
okay, let's check out and see what we have here. Okay, so how did we get here? If Lopez wins, okay, so let's talk about the main event and then we'll go from there. He says Bad Guy Inc. story that says everything. Okay, so let's get to the main event for this one. Let's hear what Chael Sonnen
Made in
has to say.
partnership with Kalshi. And what do you know? It Kalshi, the script, limiting you long-term guy. Lopez versus Volkanovski. How did we get here? All right. The UFC's in the hot seat on this one. Right. This is very interesting because don't forget, so these guys have already fought, not to mention they just fought. Lopez had one fight in between. It was against Sean Silva. And
he says, you think Bam Bam Tuivasa can finally get a W? If not, he is 0-6. Yeah, I think he's going to lose this one. They're trying to build this Taliesin Teixeira guy as the next heavyweight, right, as the next heavyweight contender. So they matched him up with Tai Tuivasa for a reason. Tai Tuivasa is a local favorite, but this is one of those situations where the local favorite is going to get smoked. So
it was great, but, you know, he cut the line in front of Murphy. He cut the line in front of Iloev. And it was kind of interesting. Like, how did we get here considering, by the way, when they fought, it was 5 rounds to none. It wasn't a matter that Lopez didn't win the fight. There was 5 mini fights that night, right? For your conclusion of those are known as rounds. He lost every single one of them.
right, and we also did a reaction to that. So okay, so all right, well, how did we get here, right? Why is this fight going on? Because let's be honest about this, right? There's a lot of 145ers out there, like Movsar Evloev. They don't want Movsar Evloev to fight for the title yet. Why? Because Movsar Evloev is considered boring to some people, right? And they just signed a new Paramount deal. They want to slowly integrate the Dagestanis in, especially with the type of style that they have going on. Right now, they're putting on the exciting fights. Justin Gaethje, Paddy Pimblett, that's an exciting fight, and that is exactly what they gave you. They gave you a Stephan Bonner, Forrest Griffin type of fight. That's what they want. He says he's going on a Tony Ferguson run. Yeah, he is. He definitely is Tai Tuivasa. So, essentially, why they made this fight is because they want Volkanovski to go out on top. I honestly think this is going to be Volkanovski's retirement fight. And it's a fight that they know he can win. That is the reality of it. But more on Chael Sonnen, and then we'll head out here. We will be heading out soon.
We've seen this before, where somebody gets a rematch. Sometimes it's immediate. This isn't immediate, but boy, it sure is close, right? 6 months, that's pretty close. When we see those immediate rematches, we, the audience, believe that we know. We believe that we know what we're looking at, and that wasn't one of the athlete's best performances. That athlete can do better. We might have even got the wrong outcome. Well, this is pretty dominant, right? This wasn't a knockout. And this wasn't a matter of an injury. Like, let me just give you an example where you see a really quick rematch that's not necessarily justified, but you think that you know more, and sometimes you come out looking great. Alex?
So, all right, will this be different this time around with Diego Lopez? My answer is probably not, unless, of course, Diego Lopez hits him with a lucky shot. All right, that's just how I see it. All right, guys, listen. That is all that I have for this one. More on UFC 325 this week. Obviously, this whole entire live stream was more predicated on the political side of things. I wanted to get to that, but I also wanted to get to a little bit of some UFC talk, so here it is. But on any regard, guys, I'm going to be heading out. Great seeing you. Great show. Great commentaries from the commentators on the chats. And God bless everyone. And I will see you in the next content, inshallah.